Do you know what to do if someone gets hurt while you're out on the trail? Hi, everybody. I'm Rob, and this is Storm Crew Overland. We talk about going on adventures, road tripping, camping, and just generally getting out and enjoying life. And on this week's episode, we're going to wrap up our series on Overland and Wilderness First Aid based on principles that are taught in TCCC, which is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. So in the previous episodes, we've talked about kind of the general idea of first aid when you're out on the trail, followed that up with the casualty assessment process that we use the acronym MARCH. This is where we're looking for like life-threatening injuries that we may be able to help. M was for massive bleeding. A was for airway. R was for respiration, followed by C for circulation, and finally we followed up with H for hypothermia. So theoretically, if we're in an incident where we need to treat someone, if someone's injured, at this point, we would have already gone through those march steps. Gotten to the point that the casualty is, for the most part, stable. The whole life-threatening part of this situation is over, and now we're moving in to more, I guess you would say, mundane, kind of secondary injuries, things that are not life-threatening, but they're still important, and they still need to get treated. They still need to be taken care of. The first thing we're going to talk about with these secondary injuries is eye injuries. And when I say eye injuries, we're mainly talking about like something actually something penetrating somebody's eye. This can be something as crazy as there was one time my stepdad was out busting concrete trying to break up a little foundation and got a chunk of concrete up in his eye. And it sat there and he had to take an emergency room. He had a chunk of concrete in his eye. Uh, I've heard of people just going out hiking and walking into the sharp end of a branch that they just didn't see it, a little branch in their eye. These are simple things that can happen, and they don't have to be completely debilitating. It doesn't have to mean someone's going to lose their eyesight, but there's things we need to do to try to take care of it, preserve as much of what's going on, limit any further damage until they can get actual treatment. Biggest thing with eye injuries that we're going to talk about is trying to immobilize whatever's going on there. If it's something small enough, a little chunk of whatever, something, we're going to use what they call an eye shield. It's something you can get online. It's really just a little domed piece of plastic, about yay big, that you put over there. If they've got something in their eye, you put it over the rest of their eye, tape it so it doesn't move. And the idea is there's nothing else that's going to hit that little piece, whatever's penetrating their eye. Nothing's going to hit it and move it and have it moving around in their eyeball and causing more damage, more tissue getting torn up. That's what we're trying to avoid. Now, I don't even carry an eye shield around in my kit. I probably will at some point. It's not something I've invested in yet, and I say invested like they cost more than $5. But it's kind of a lower threat thing that's easy to improvise. As long as you can get something that will cover whatever's sticking out of their eye, it'll work. I mean, you can use a pair of goggles if you have them. You can use a red Solo cup and just tape it in place. Basically, whatever you can do to keep whatever's there immobilized. Now, the important thing is we don't want to pull this out of their eye. Whatever it is, big, little, doesn't matter. We're not going to be the ones pulling it out. We need to get them to actual medical professionals so they can pull it out and treat it and do whatever they need to do to help have the best chance of them preserving this person's eyesight. I don't want to be the jerk that decided to rip something out of somebody's eye and cause them to be blind for the rest of their life. So we're going to send them to emergency people for that. All we're going to do, like I said, is try to immobilize it with an eye shield or an improvised eye shield. It's really all we can do in that situation. Okay, next we're going to move into talking about how to treat burns. Now, camping, being around vehicles, whether it's campfires or hot exhaust or engine parts, even electrical burns. These are things that are threats that we're facing when we're out there. And so burns happen. I think most of us have burned ourselves at one point or another on something. When it comes to burns, first we need to talk about the degrees of burns. First degree burn, second degree, third degree burn. Just to kind of identify them. First degree burn, you're just looking for like red skin, almost like a bad sunburn. Pretty simple. Second degree burn, things are getting more serious. Generally, what you're seeing here is blistered skin. Blisters is kind of the big key that we're looking at the second degree burn. And not that it really matters for us at this stage of responding and trying to help somebody, but this also has to deal with how deep into the skin the burn is gone and how much damage it's done. But it really doesn't really matter for what we're doing. Finally, third degree burns. These are bad. They're really obvious. It's charred skin, black, leathery, crispy. I hate to say this, but I mean, it's nasty to think about. That's what you're looking for with that third degree burn. Good or bad, there's really not a whole lot we need to worry about on treatment here. Cover the burn with a dry, sterile dressing if you have it. Dry, sterile, best. Dry, not sterile, okay. Don't put anything wet on it. Yeah, if it's a first degree burn, you'll put a cool cloth on it a little bit. Yeah, it's fine because it doesn't really need treatment. But especially that second and third degree burns, dry, sterile cloth if you can. Just cover it up. Treat the person for shock, like we discussed in the previous video. And then finally, with burns, if it's an electrical burn, if the person is actually getting shocked, you've never been shocked. I have a little bit, just a little bit. Your muscles tend to clamp up. So if you grab something and it shocks you, your muscles spasm and you can't let go, and you will continue to hold on to whatever's shocking you, and you will keep getting shocked, and it will keep doing damage and burning your insides. If somehow this is not something we have to worry about with vehicles as much, 12-volt systems aren't as big a threat when it comes to this. But if you're at a campsite and someone's plugged into shore power with a trailer or something like that, like I said, this comes in more when you're talking about like 110 power, not 12 volt. But if you do see someone getting shocked, do not run up with your bare hands and grab them and try to move them, because skin conducts electricity. You're going to grab them. You're going to be getting shocked. Your muscles are going to clench up, and now you're both getting shocked. You need to find something non-conductive, wooden handle, something like that, a big stick, whatever it takes, to try to either hit a switch to shut the power off or pry them off of whatever is doing the shocking. That's really all you can do. Except the easiest thing is if you can find a way to shut the power off, just shut the power off. If not, use something non-conductive, something not metallic that's not going to conduct electricity and put you in danger. All right, so now that we've talked about burns, we're going to move into fractures. So we've got two types of fractures. We like to break down every category. Two types of fractures, though: open and closed. Almost self-explanatory. Generally, if any of you have broken an arm or a leg or a finger or a toe, you probably had a closed fracture. And when we say closed or open, we're referring to the skin around that fracture. A lot of people, they'll break their arm or something and their bones are screwy, but they didn't rip through the skin. If the bones have ripped through the skin and now there's a bone sticking out and blood and everything else, that's an open fracture. We treat them slightly differently. With closed fracture, we're just going to splint it, which we'll talk about in just a minute, to immobilize it to prevent any further damage. It's kind of like the eye shield. We did that. We're trying to immobilize those two broken bones that have sharp pointy ends. We don't want them moving around inside and scraping against each other or cutting up other muscle tissue around there and just causing more damage. We want everything to just be locked down, not moving. Same with the open fracture, but for some reason, some people, when they come upon someone with an open fracture, it's almost like an inherent want to fix things. They want to try to put it back inside and line things back up. Don't do that. Leave it. If it's sticking out, let it stick out. If it's bleeding, treat the bleeding as best as you can. But same thing. You're trying to immobilize the bones so those sharp broken ends of bones are not moving around, jaggedly cutting things up. So what we're going to do there is you want to put a splint on it. If you, like I said, if you've broken a finger or something and you taped it to the other finger to keep it from moving, same idea. Biggest thing with splints though is you want to immobilize. So we're going to pretend that I broke my forearm, one of the two bones here in my forearm. You need to splint the joint above it and below it. You need to splint both ends to make sure neither end of this bone is trying to move around inside. It's no good if you just splint one end because then the other end can still make that end move around. Yeah, you just got to mobilize the whole thing. Um, you can do this different ways. Sticks, that's probably the easiest way. Tent poles, stuff like that. Uh, if you are looking for something to expand your first aid kit, there's a really neat thing I like. It's called a SAM splint. What it is it's a thin, easy to pack thing. They're not very expensive. It's a sheet of aluminum, thick, not like aluminum foil. It's a little bit thicker than that. That's covered in a squishy foam. But the important thing is when you bend it, it maintains its shape. So you can do this and kind of, so like if I was going to splint my forearm, I'd kind of spring it out, maybe kind of give it kind of a C shape to help it hold its shape. And then little part for my wrist there on the end. And then kind of do that up. And then I can immobilize that joint and my wrist joint and keep everything from moving. And you can just shape it to however you need. And you can do this for arm, wrist, ankle, knee, anything. You can shape these things, get decently big. You can shape it however you need. And if you put some curves in it, kind of give it a C shape or something, it'll stay rigid enough to kind of keep things immobilized. Important though, make sure that once you put a splint on, that you secure it somehow. Belts work good, rope, as long as it's like kind of thick. Don't use thin like paracord, or don't tie it too tight. It'll start cutting into their skin. Strips of your t-shirt if you have to, anything like that. Just remember, above and below, the joint above and below the actual fracture. Okay, so the final type of secondary injury we're going to talk about in this video and how to assess it and treat it is head injuries. You know, if we're out overlanding, off-roading, doing stuff like that, being on trail, we're in a vehicle. Vehicle accidents can happen. Rollovers can happen. And these are things that have a good chance of causing head injuries. And when I say head injuries, I'm not talking about you just banged your head and you got a cut. I'm talking about concussions, traumatic brain injuries, whiplash, things like that. Not a lot of treatment you can do in the field for these things, but it is important that you go ahead and assess the casualty to see if they're displaying signs of any of this head trauma so that you can let the actual medical professionals that will be treating them later, let them know so they can look out for it and do what they need to do. The first thing you're going to do when it comes to assessing head injuries is you're going to look at how the person got injured. If they were cooking dinner at camp and they cut their finger off, they probably don't have a head injury unless they passed out and fell over and hit their head on a rock. If they were in a vehicle rollover and didn't have a seatbelt on and they banged their head on the headrest or the windshield or something, then you're probably going to start suspecting they might have a head injury. Other things you're going to be looking for is the person just not right? Are they kind of out of it? Are they dizzy? Are their ears ringing? Are they complaining about double vision? Can they not focus on what's going on? Like I said, if they're just kind of out of it, that's when you're really going to start suspecting possibly a head injury. So you look for those signs combined with how they got injured to kind of assess whether they have a head injury or not, and then you're going to report that. Speaking of reporting it, the last thing we're going to talk about on this video and in this whole series is communication. Throughout this whole process, you need to be communicating. From the very beginning, when you initially realize someone's hurt, to the very end, when they're getting loaded into an ambulance, communication needs to be happening the entire time. Whether it is communicating with the person that's hurt to try to reassure them, hey, you're going to be okay. Hey, yeah, you burned your arm, but look here, I'm going to wrap it up and we're going to get you some treatment. It can be communicating with other people around. Weird psychological thing. If you're in a big group and someone gets hurt, don't go, hey, someone call 911. Pick someone out of the crowd. You call 911. It's weird group mentality, group think things, but if you single someone out, there's a much greater chance they're going to go do what you told them. If you tell a group to do it, everyone's going to assume someone else is going to do it, or that someone else is already doing it. I don't need to do it. They'll single someone out. Hey, you go do this. Hey, you bring me the red first aid kit at the back of my Forerunner, whatever it is. Hey, you come help me move this person out of the way of this car that's on fire. Call people out, communicate, ask for help. The final kind of communication we're looking for is communicating with the medical professionals that show up to deal with this person that you've been taking care of this whole time. So whether it's you're giving them to forest rangers or EMTs or medevac helicopters showed up, whatever it is, you need to communicate to them two main things. The first being, what happened? What was the main cause of injury? How did this person come to get hurt? Hey, they were in a motor vehicle crash. They rolled over. They rolled over 5 times down this cliff about 10 feet. They didn't have their seatbelt on, and it looks like they banged their head off the windshield. You want them to know how this person got injured. And anything you think might be important with that. Don't tell them, oh, well, they rolled over 4 times and I think their flip-flop fell off. No one cares. But stuff like, hey, they might have banged their head on the windshield. The windshield was cracked. We think they hit their head. Stuff like that. Hey, they were cooking and they cut their finger and they were cooking with something they were allergic to and we didn't know it. They might have gotten their bloodstream. I don't know. Anything that, for some reason, if you think it's important, tell them and let them decide if it's important or not. The second big thing that you need to pass on to these medical professionals to ensure this person that you've been taking care of gets the best care they can is you need to let them know what aid you have already rendered. Sorry about that. So, if they had massive bleeding from a chainsaw wound to their leg because they fell while they were cutting firewood, hey, they cut their leg real bad. There's a tourniquet on their right leg, on their upper thigh. We had to do that to stop blood. Hey, we had to use quick clot in their shoulder pit. I want you to know that's there so y'all can do whatever you need to do. Stuff like that. Anything you have done treatment-wise to this person, any aid you have rendered, let them know so they can treat based off that information. So that about wraps up this multi-part series on Overland and Wilderness First Aid. I hope y'all have found this useful and interesting. I hope you never have to use any of this information. I hope this is just fun knowledge to have in the back of your head that never becomes useful. But with that, I understand life happens. We get hurt. I've used a lot of these things on myself, on my family, on my friends. A lot of times little things, but they still can come in handy. Just this knowledge, and with knowledge comes confidence that you can handle the situation. So do me a favor. If you have made it this far through this whole series and you've gotten to the end of this video, leave me a comment and let me know a story of a time you've had to provide some kind of first aid to somebody. Especially if it was like big first aid, like the trauma level first aid. If you pulled a splinter out of a kid's store at Walmart, you can share that too. I mean, I'll still give you a good little thumbs up, but I want to hear y'all's good stories. That's really all I have for you. It's been more work than I expected, getting all this broken down into videos and figuring it all out, but it's been fun. I'm excited to say we're almost at 300 subscribers, so the channel's growing pretty much every week, even if it's just 1 or 2 subscribers every week. It's been growing every week, and so I get excited about that. Sorry, I was sick over the weekend. Still got a bit of a cough. But let's see. If you're watching this on YouTube, just realize we also release the audio as a podcast. You can find it wherever good podcasts are found. Just search Stormcrow Overland. If you are listening to this in the podcast version, just realize there's a video of it where you can watch on YouTube. Look for Stormcrow Overland. You can also find us on Instagram at Stormcrow Overland. And you can shoot me an email at stormcrowoverland@gmail.com. I forget to mention that one sometimes. And when it comes to any of those platforms or anything, I would greatly appreciate like, comment, follow, subscribe, share, comment, any of that kind of stuff. Let me know what you think. Do you like the content? Do you not like the content? Is there something else you'd rather hear me talk about? Is there anything you want to know my thoughts on? Love to hear it. Love to hear from y'all. Love feedback. Go for it. Well, I'm kind of excited to be wrapping up this whole first aid series. So sometimes you have to go out and get lost and hopefully not use any of this stuff before you can find yourself. Thanks for watching.